Welcome to the Practicing Accountant Podcast, your go-to resource for transforming your accounting practice. This podcast is for accountants ready to take control of their business and build their ideal practice by mastering the essentials, setting the right prices, defining a powerful niche, and selling with ease. We'll dive into strategies that boost profits, attract your ideal clients, elevate your services, and help you choose the most effective pricing models. We are champions for efficiency, value, and intentionality, and adversaries of people-pleasing, bad clients, and complacency. We provide actionable strategies to help you break the hamster wheel of typical accounting work. The mission of the Practicing Accountant Podcast is simple: to enhance your experience as an entrepreneurial accountant and help you turn neglected practices into a thriving business. So, if you're ready to level up your practice, this podcast is for you. Tune in and let's get to work. It is a beautiful day, winter day, here in Colorado at 60 degrees plus. And most likely by the time this is released, we will be in snow and negative degrees. So for those of you who don't live in Colorado, you should know that what we're used to is today will be 60 degrees, which is probably warmer than a lot of places in the country. And then tomorrow we'll be staring down snow and highs in the single digits, if not low doubles. And then 3 or 4 days from now, it'll be 60 again, and all of it will melt away.
So on Tuesday, we're supposed to have a wind chill of negative 34.
Negative 34? Wow. Okay. I'm not going outside. Not that I would anyway, but I'm not going out there in that. Mm-mm.
Keep those faucets dripping.
No, thank you. No, thank you indeed. So that's what's going on. Just the schizophrenia of our weather in Colorado, but I'm excited today because I want to talk about something. And the words value-based pricing have been around since like the late 1990s, early 2000s. And the pioneer in our industry probably you would point to who would you say?
Ron Baker.
Yeah, Ron Baker. Mm-hmm. Ron Baker's the guy that really is focused on value-based pricing and was kind of a pioneer around that concept and pushing it very early on, and hysterically enough, almost 25 years later, that's still something that firms are struggling with and not quite grasping. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question, actually. I think accounting firms are slow to adopt change, period. And they're always aware of risk, so value-based pricing to them seems risky compared to cost plus.
Yeah. I think there's another reason. I think the other reason is that they don't know how to calculate it. Like they actually don't know how to come up with it.
That's
like
very
if you
true.
said, go out and price this at value. Like if you were an art dealer, what you would do is you'd say, okay, I need to sell this piece of art. And the question you'd ask is, what would someone be willing to pay? And you'd look around at other similar art or artists and see what the market was. And you'd say, that's what I'm going to sell it for. And so you'd sell it. Well, in accounting, you can't do that.
Right.
Because everywhere you look, they're all, trying to be cheaper, charging by the hour or a fixed fee that they just came up with. It's not value. It's just whatever they think clients will pay, which I guess some could argue is market, but I don't think you could argue is value.
No.
But I think also there's just no equation for it. But I found one, and we'll get to that later in the conversation today. Actually,
Interesting.
I'm excited to see this. I probed GPT enough that I got it to actually kick out an actual equation on how to calculate value-based prices today.
Wow.
But before we get there, breaking news. But before we get there, there's another gentleman that back in the early 2000s was very, very focused on value-based pricing, and his name was Alan Weiss. And for those of you that want to know how to spell that is Alan with one L and Weiss, Alan Weiss. And he wrote a book that I'm going to show you here, and it is How to Maximize Fees in Professional Service Firms. I don't think you can find this book on Amazon anymore. I think you can find it online, but I'm not sure if Amazon carries this anymore. But you'll see books like $1 Million Consulting he wrote, and How to Build $1 Million Consulting Business, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So he's written books around this. But this, and the beauty of this, I don't know if you can see how thin this is, right?
No.
I mean, it is a total of, let me tell you, 52 pages, cover to cover, 52
Nice.
pages. This is not a complicated book, but there are some brilliant things in here. At one point, I owned like 50 copies of this, and I would hand them out to my clients to be like, listen, you got to read this book. You got to read this book. You got to read this book. And I think it helped a lot of them. I don't know. I can't say that they all read it, but they got free books from me. That's the kind of service you get from the CPA coach. You get free books when you're a client. So just keep that in mind. So a couple of points I want to bring out of his book and share with you. And you just jump in whenever you...
Well, let me jump in on something right there.
Yeah.
That just because it is not a long book does not mean it's not valuable.
Right. Some of my favorite books, like this one. This is a fantastic one. Growing Your Business by Mark LeBlanc. This is like one of my favorite books of all time for businesses. And I mean, Meditations, which is one of the greatest philosophical books of all time, is only like 100 pages long. I mean, the writing's pretty tiny, but so you're right. It does not have to be long to be great.
And the input does not equal value. The volume of input does not equal value in our industry.
400 pages doesn't mean that it's worth more than 50 pages.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. I agree. So I'm going to kind of speak some of Alan Weiss. I'm going to preach for Alan Weiss here.
Let's do it.
And feel free to jump in any commentary. One of his first chapters is value must be based on worth. Fees should never be based on time units of any sort. If your value to a client is simply a matter of how many hours, days, or weeks you provide, then you are no better than a commodity. Clients will understandably and rationally evaluate you as a commodity. Their legitimate questions will be, can't you do it in less time? Do you need it to take so many days? And what exactly is your hourly rate?
Yep.
Value must be based upon the worth which you bring to your client. The client's fee is an investment, which bears a certain return. The return is in the eyes of the client, which you can help manage. Guess that's one point. Anything on that?
Nope, not yet.
Sounds good so far?
Mm-hmm.
Never negotiate fees, negotiate value. So there's 3 keys here. Never voluntarily offer options to reduce fees. Do not reduce fees, reduce value add. Never reduce a fee without a reduction in perceived value. So one of the most difficult objections we hear from a prospect is, I'd love to use you, but we simply don't have the budget. It's not that we don't appreciate your value, it's just that we can't afford you. In all candor, how do you usually respond to their velvet rejection? If you're at all honest, most of you said, well, how much can you afford, right? You totally do. You're like, well, okay, well, what can you pay? And then they say a number, and you're like, all right, I'll go ahead and do it for that much, right?
Yep.
But from that point on, you've joined the buyer in helping you to negotiate your fee downward. And with the two of you working diligently together on reducing the fee will spiral downward with surprising acceleration. So never negotiate fees, negotiate value. The point is, if the fees are lower, the value should be lower. So you shouldn't be providing as many things, or one chunk of the value you provide should be removed if they want to reduce the fees. But it's just not something you reduce because they say they can't pay it.
Yep. He said something in there that is really important, and that was perceived value.
Mm-hmm.
That is the basis of value pricing. Is what is that client's perceived value of your services, and it's probably perceived differently from client to client, or it should be perceived differently from client to client.
Right.
So,
Well, not only that, but it should. I mean, the word perceived. It's not from the perspective of the accountants.
right.
That's not where the value is, because their value is time.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're thinking, okay, the value to me is how much time I spend on this. But if you switch that to say, what is the value in the eyes of the client, of the prospect? Yep. How do they perceive this? What value does it bring? And, is it, the some of the go-tos are like, well, I'm going to help my clients sleep better at night. Okay. That's true, maybe. What else? Well, they'll be able to make decisions quicker because they'll have their books closed faster. Okay, good. So timely information, that's valuable for sure. I'll help their tax preparer have a better tax return because their books are so clean. Okay, all right, getting somewhere a little bit. I'll help them identify ways in which they can save money by highlighting, where they've got disproportionate percentage of expenses or revenue from one year to the next, and help them create some opportunities going forward for cost savings or additional top line growth. Ooh, now we're getting somewhere. I know I'll help them achieve their goals and their strategies and the things they're trying to get done this year. My reporting will help point to ways in which they need to adjust and change so that they achieve their goals. Ooh, wow. Now we're getting real valuable. I'm getting excited.
Yep.
I'm being
And it goes deeper than that. If you follow that trail, it probably ends up with freedom and money and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what everybody's after. And
totally,
finances are a way to get some of that.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I don't really like this one. I'm not going to talk about that one. One other one. There are some reasons in which you might reduce your price or you might bill at an amount lower than value. And that's usually when, I'll paraphrase, it's usually when that client can introduce you to additional clients or has additional, more profitable or more valuable work that you can get your hands on. Maybe they're going through a hard time and you're going to give them a concession with a clear bookend, front and back, of how long you're going to allow that concession to be. Or, some other reasons are good reasons to drop the price. But you should never provide a discounted fee without some quid pro quo. They're giving up something too.
No. When you drop pricing, it dramatically affects profit more than most people think. Mm-hmm. Same thing with increasing pricing, but when you lower price or offer discount, your margins sink quickly.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line of this, there are a limited number of days. There are a limited number of hours in the day. Usually cannot bill for more than 8 hours in a normal working day, 40 hours in a normal working week, but there is no limit to the potential value which you bring to a client. How much is it worth to save a client money, to fend off a legal problem, to improve morale, to enhance competitive edge, to provide peace of mind? I'll tell you how much, as much as the client values it. And that value will inevitably be more than several hours or even several days of your time. So the three keys: values in the eyes of the client, fees should be based upon fulfilling value, not performing tasks, and time unit billing will always be less than your true value.
Yep.
So that was written, I want to say this was, 2000 something, very early 2000s. And I love that. I love the book. I love the concepts. But at the same time, when I read it, when I get to the end of it, I understand the concept. I still don't necessarily know what to do. Mm. I don't necessarily know what it means. Like I can take away from that if I price something at my normal hourly rates, that I should increase it by some amount because it's more, and that should be closer to value than what I was at.
Sure.
Yep. So I'm just going to do more. I'm going to add 10%, 20%.
That's still cost plus.
Right. But you feel better because you're like charging more and you're maybe leaving a little bit uncomfortable about the whole thing. So I went to our buddy ChatGPT, and first I asked it this question. I provide bookkeeping services on a monthly basis. So I close the book, prepare financials, and I send them to the client. I currently charge $1,000 a month based on it taking me about 4 hours to do the work at $250 an hour. And then I asked it, how would I convert that to value-based pricing? Its response: number 1, understand the client's needs and value. Number 2, assess the client's willingness to pay. Number 3, which is just a poor answer, shift to a value-based model. I know that's what we're trying to do. Thanks, ChatGPT. But what it really is saying is create like packages, like, call it the bookkeeper package, the controller package, and the CFO package.
Yeah, the typical gold, silver, and bronze type of thing. Yep.
Exactly. And then it says, conveniently calculate your value-based price, which all it says there is if your service saves your client significant time or helps them avoid mistakes, you might price your monthly service at this much, at $1,500 instead of $1,000, or more, depending on the overall value it brings to the business. Compare your pricing to the client's return or the cost of similar services they could receive elsewhere to determine a reasonable price, which it like alludes to like there being some mysterious calculation behind it, but it doesn't really say anything except more.
Yep.
Number 5 on the list here is communicate value, which I think is important. I think that's one thing that accountants, and I've coached a lot of accountants on business development, and when they meet a prospect, what do they like to talk about?
Their features, their services.
What they do.
Yeah.
What they do. Like, we've got a team and they put together your books, and we're gonna crank and we're gonna get it done by the 5th of the month. And then we've got this special system and software which converts it into this great data analytics that provides you margin analysis year over year. And then we've got access to some benchmarking data where we can show where you're off in your industry, and we can give you all these pieces of paper and reports that we'll sit down with you and talk with you about. And then we'll drive back to our office and we'll wait till next month and we'll do it again.
So that I can what?
Right. Exactly. There's like, and what,
Yeah.
and what, but really though, what do I get for it?
What does that do? Yeah.
Right. It's like you leave them hanging. But that's what I've experienced, and I've done it too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not being a hypocrite. I am a hypocrite. I've done this.
Me too.
Yep. But the key is to not talk about the task. It's to talk about the outcome. It's talk about the benefit. It's talk about the value. And if your website has a list of services that outlines a bunch of tasks, you might consider converting all of those tasks and using your translator and turning that into something that the client perceives as valuable rather than what you do,
Yep.
what they get. What is the outcome that you provide to them? Cost, tax savings, whatever.
It would be somewhat analogous to a pest control company coming in and telling you what chemicals they were going to spray.
Right.
Like,
Which they love to do. Terminix loves to do that.
Right. But what are you? Okay, what does that chemical do? It kills the mice. Okay, well that's good. But I didn't need to know the process of how you get there. I just need to know that I'm going to be pest free.
Right.
That's it.
I'm not going to get bit by something tonight.
Yep.
Like, the value is you can sleep at night without worrying about your toes getting bit by a mouse or a spider. Like, okay, that's worth a lot.
I'll
take
it,
that. Especially if you tell me I've got a lot of mice and spiders running around. So communicating the value, actually having a conversation about it and understanding, through inquiry, through listening, through being curious, what is most valuable to this prospect? Like, what is it they really want? They say, I want timely reporting. You say, oh, you do. The accountant is going to say, I do that. Yeah, I can fix that for you. I can have it in 5 days. Well, you shouldn't have stopped the conversation there. You said, what would that do for you? If you had your financial package in 5 days after a year, and what would you get? Well, it'd be nice to have that information so I can make some decisions. What kind of decisions are you trying to make each month that are important? Well, I'm trying to figure out, where I need to focus in my regions and where I really need to throw some money in sales and leads and try to grow this thing, or I need to make more widgets over here. And that could turn a bigger profit. Ooh, so you're saying if you had timely reports within 5 days, it will allow you to increase your profit? Yeah, really? Wow. Well, that's what we do here. We increase profit.
There you go.
Ramo, right?
Yep.
Yes, please. And so now they're tying the services you do to an outcome of profit. So they're looking at you now as part of their profit machine, not their financial report provider on the 5th day of the month.
Yep.
But that conversation usually doesn't happen because accountants are problem solvers, and as soon as they hear a problem, they go, yep, I can do that in 5 days.
Yep. It's like talking
I didn't
to your
have
wife.
any caffeine this afternoon. I think it may seem like I had some caffeine this afternoon, but I didn't. Sorry, it's like talking to your wife.
You gotta listen. You gotta listen more than you solve. Same thing with your clients.
Yeah, it's great. I'm not gonna agree with you on that, just in case my wife ever listens to this. Okay, so this is what ChatGPT put out the first round, and I was like, here's what I wrote back. I said, thank you, ChatGPT, because I say thank you to ChatGPT. Like, thanks, robot.
I do that too. You know why?
Yeah.
Just when the singularity comes and
it
becomes
right.
Yeah.
They're gonna remember you.
All hearing, all knowing.
So
I want
nice.
it to be on. I want to be on its good side.
Such a nice guy. I'm not gonna blow him up. Okay, so I took that its response and I said, okay, thank you, but I want you to think and dig deeper. I want you to be the most analytical and familiar with the accounting industry. I want you to use models from other industries and provide a clear answer. What would an equation be that would convert a service provided and billed on an hourly basis to a service that was billed based on value? Pretty good prompt, right?
I'm anxious to hear this because I don't think that there is an equation, but I'm curious to hear. I don't think that you can have an equation for value pricing because it's an art, but let's go.
All right. We're about to find out. First of all, to transition to value-based pricing, you need to understand the value delivered. You need to have some concept of the client's perceived value. That's the real key right there. Some concept of the client's perceived value. It would be nice if you could do some market comparisons and also know the cost of the service, like the cost to you. You ready? Here it comes.
Mm-hmm.
Value-based price equals benefit delivered times perceived value factor plus risk premium plus market benchmark. I'll repeat that. Value-based price equals benefit delivered times perceived value factor plus risk premium plus market benchmark. All right. So how do we walk this out? I'll walk this out for you. So let's start with the first variable, benefit delivered. So this is the tangible benefit of the service. So, saving time, to streamline their accounting, reducing stress, helping the client avoid penalties, interest, improving profitability, etc. And the benefit can be quantified by the amount of time savings for the client. Like, just imagine how much time, like literally how much time you're saving them in phone calls and headaches and talking to a regulatory service if they had to, or having to do the bookkeeping on their own. So you might present them from a tax penalty, like a $5,000 tax penalty. Like that's the benefit delivered. Okay. Then there's a perceived value factor. This represents how much the client values the service in relation to the benefit. This is subjective and can vary, but this factor will typically be a multiplier that adjusts the base value of your service. So if your service provides $10,000 in value, like you avoided the penalties, that's the benefit delivered.
Yep. And
the client perceives this value as highly significant, the perceived value factor might be 0.25, which is a conservative estimate, meaning they're not going to pay you dollar for dollar for the benefit they receive, but they might pay, 25 cents on the dollar for the benefit that you give. So you haircut it. Yep. You knock it down 75% and get it to 25%. So they would pay you $2,500 to save them $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now risk premium. So this is an adjustment made to the account for the risk associated with the service. So in bookkeeping, there might be a risk that it's super complex and there's a lot of risk, and managing the financials could be a fixed amount of percentage depending on the perceived risk. And then the market benchmark, the last variable, this reflects how much other providers in the market are charging for similar services. In other words, if you're going to value-based pricing and you're in a community where everyone else is on hourly, your price may be not as competitive. It might be more than those other folks, even though that there's value there. But you might look at the market rate for similar bookkeeping services. So let's put this all together, because that was a lot. You hanging in there?
Yep.
I have no idea if anyone listening is hanging in there, but here we go.
So all 10 of them, all 10 of you,
all 10 of them. So in our calculation, the benefit delivered is $10,000. That's saving in penalties and real hours dealing with that crap. The perceived value factor, let's just say they're willing to spend 20 cents on the dollar to get that perceived value. So our perceived value factor is 0.2.
Okay.
And the risk premium, let's say it's $200. We're just going to add $200 because it's pretty complex, and there's added risk to me, the accountant. And then let's say the market research shows that similar bookkeeping services are priced around $1,500 a month, and let's just say the benchmark's $1,200. So we're going to add $1,200. So the value-based price ultimately is 10,000 times perceived value factor of 0.2. So we're at 2,000 plus 200 for our risk. So now we're at 2,200 plus 1,200, which is the market benchmark for these services, bringing our total value-based price per month of $3,400.
Now, are you truly? I'm a little confused on the fourth item, the market benchmark. You're adding everything to what your competitors are currently charging.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's the the competitor is doing it on a hourly basis, right? And so we're taking that value. Now, I guess you could say, I see where you're going with this. You could say, we came up with 2,200. That's what the value is of the thing, of the service, and then we should subtract what the others are doing, the 1,200. But that doesn't get us anywhere,
No, I'll
right?
have to play with that. But
Yeah.
to a certain extent, we are still sort of cost plus if we are assuming that the market benchmark is based on a cost plus price. Because now we're just adding a premium to that. There's some other factors, but
Well, the key factor is that benefit delivered.
yeah,
Like that's the piece of this. That's if there's nothing else you take away from this diatribe that I'm throwing at you, it's that you spend some time considering the benefit that you are delivering to your client, like the savings in time. Like what's an hour of their time worth, or if you're replacing some of their personnel by what you're doing, what's the value of that personnel plus
right.
benefits? If you are saving them potential, penalties and interest through the work that you're doing, what are some penalties that a business like that normally would encounter, or some things they'd screw up, and then what would the penalties be on something like that?
Yep.
If you could generate an extra $10,000 of profit a month based on your services, that's intentionally spending some time deciding what that benefit delivered. And if you just did that, and if you just added that perceived value factor, what they would pay for that value, a discount, they would pay 25 cents to get that. And then I don't even care about the risk premium. I don't even care about the market benchmark. If you just did those first two things, benefit delivered times perceived value factor, that would give you a price.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the price you should charge.
Right.
But that is a method in which you can calculate value-based price.
I think it's a great starting point. I mean, $3,400 increased from the market benchmark of 1,200 is not out of line for somebody that is having a value conversation with the client and communicating value. I don't think that's out of line at all. But we have to play with the formula a little bit. But I think it's a great starting point.
Yeah, and I guess based on your own taste and your own preferences, you can maneuver that however you want to. But I don't think you can do it any other way without considering the benefit delivered, like intentionally spending some time around what benefits your client is receiving from this. And there's going to be some very subjective calculations and definitely some estimates, but that doesn't mean it can't be measured.
Yep. I think before you told the formula, I pushed back, and I think we're both right. There's a calculation, but there's also a giant assumption and an art to that perceived value factor.
Yeah, I agree. But I thought it would be kind of fun just to see, because I mean, if you Google it, maybe you'll find something. I actually didn't Google it, so I can't say that you would or wouldn't find a equation for a value-based price. But it would be fun, just because we're as accountants, you can build a spreadsheet all day long, and you could build one that does this for you, and you could put in your hours you expect to spend, what your price would be, and then you could go through a similar calculation. You can come up with all the different ways in which the client might receive benefit for what you do, and then just kind of check off the ones that service actually provides, and throw a dollar in there, and you can come up with something. And if it encourages and supports you to move out of the billing for the hour and into the billing for the worth of the service, then that's positive.
100%. Yeah, I think this gets you 80-90% of the way there to get away from the time billing,
which might be enough.
And
then what you have to be prepared for, because I think we'll end on this, what you have to be prepared for is one question from the prospect. Like how many hours do you think that's going to take you?
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to answer that question.
Yep.
And you have to be prepared to say something along the lines of, well, actually, I don't keep track of them. I just focus on, the value of what we provide, and this is what it's worth. So that's what we bill. Well, when I get my invoice, am I going to get a breakout of like where you spent your time and all that stuff? Well, you'll get a breakout of the value we provided, and that's what we'll provide for you. So I don't get it by hour. No. Mm-mm. Well, the guy down the street, my old guy, did.
We get that question often, and you shut it down quickly, and it's almost never an issue. People ask, well, what do you charge hourly? We're like, we don't charge hourly. What do you charge? We charge a fixed rate that we'll send you a quote, and we'll adjust as we need to go as the scope changes, and that's that. They're just used to asking, what do you charge per hour? That's all.
They're used to getting an answer.
Yeah.
Because that's what their former accountant did.
Yep. And if you answer confidently that you just simply don't do that, they won't push back. And if they do, they're not the right client anyway.
Right. You're like, okay, no problem. See ya.
Yep.
You look at all the value you're going to miss, but have fun.
Yep. Go find Bob down the street that charges $100 an hour.
You'll see him once a year.
Yep. That's right.
All right. That's my diatribe today, is my little experiment. I wanted to encourage, a little bit more of a deeper dive into just the concept of what is value-based pricing, because I think it becomes a cliche that people use the words. They don't actually put some meat on the bone of how it's done. And I think there's a lot of consultants out there that are pushing value-based pricing, but don't help their clients understand exactly how that translates into their business, other than to say charge more. Yep. And anyway.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cheers. All right, man. Thanks.